You know, I used to be a Citadel only guy back in the days. They have a lot of different colors, they have the contrast paints, they have technical paints, they have a lot of interesting stuff. But then two thin coats arrived, made by Duncan Rhodes. I'm sure you've heard of the guy if you're in this community, and yeah, he recently launched his web store where you can buy all his new paints. I already own Wave 1, 2 and 3, and I consider purchasing the Dark Arts when it is released. I've already reviewed the Army Painters John Blanc sets, set 1 and 2, so there's a link in the description if you're interested in that. And if you want me to review the Dark Arts, let me know in the comments. But as part of his Kickstarter, when the original waves were announced, you could buy some technical paints, 6 of them in fact. And they've recently become available on his new web store. There's also a link for that in the description. And no, I'm not sponsored in any way. I recently bought these effect paints myself for my own hard-earned money. So that is what this video is about. I'm going to review those effect paints, except one, and that is the Spirit Medium, which is just essentially a thinner for your paints. So there isn't really much to review here, but the other 5, that's what this video is about. So please enjoy and happy painting. And here we have the 5 effect paints in question. We have Vampire Thirst, Zombie Gore, Verdigris, Iron Oxide and Desert Rust. And you might recognize these poor fellows if you followed my channel for a while. These are from the greatest hits such as 7 blood effects tested on miniatures and stripping miniatures. All I've done with these Necrons is I sprayed them with lead belcher and given them an all-over shade of non-oil and a dry brush of the appropriately named Necron compound. I'm beginning with Vampire Thirst, which is a blood effect. Let's begin. Vampire Thirst is essentially the 2 thin coats version of Blood for the Bloodguard from Citadel. I've given it a good shake, as you always should with these kind of paints, or any paints really. Just adding a little to my palette here. And I'm not going to thin this or anything, I want to see how it works straight out from the pot. And then I'm just applying it all over this Necron, as weird as it sounds. See how it reacts. It's not a shade, it doesn't go into the recesses or anything unless you paint directly onto it. I'm not going to cover it completely, but I just want to see how it looks when it dries, to give you an idea of how and where and when to apply this. Like so, I think that's enough. And when it's dry, I'm going to paint the other half with blood for the Bloodguard from Citadel to make a comparison in the contrast color, you know. And yeah, I'll be right back once it's dry. I know I said I would be back once it's dry, and it's not dry yet, but I just thought that I would add some blood for the Bloodguard straight away on the other half and let them both dry completely so we can make a comparison. But straight out of the pot I can tell that the Citadel version is a bit lighter than the 2 thin coats version. But as I said, I'll let it dry and you can make your own judgment. And yes, I know a bloody Necron makes no sense, but hey, it's science fiction, right? Maybe it's the blood of his enemies. Some unlucky Imperial Guard got a bit too close to this Necron, maybe. Well, I'll be right back. Okay, both of the paints are dry and I have a few thoughts about it. It seems to me like the Too Thin Coats variant is a bit thinner than Blood for the Blood Guard. But you can always thin down Blood for the Blood Guard with some water, so I wouldn't make the switch just based on that. But the Vampire Thirst variant is a bit darker, so if that's important to you, I'll pick that one instead. They are both a bit glossy. I'll say the Blood for the Blood Guard version is more glossy than the other one. So if you want a bit darker and a more realistic look, I'll go for Vampire Thirst. And yeah, with that, I'm moving on to the next paint. Let's go. The next one is called Zombie Gore, and according to the website, this is best used in conjunction with Vampire Thirst. But I'll just use this as it is, straight out of the bottle, and I've given it a good shake already. Now I'm just adding some to my palette. It's very dark compared to Vampire Thirst, as you can see here. But let's add some Zombie Gore to this poor Necron. Seems to be just as thin as Vampire Thirst. But I'll add this on parts of the Necron, let it dry, show you the result, and then add some Vampire Thirst to it afterwards to see how they look when combined, as the website suggests you should do. And I think that's enough. Now it's enough. I'll be right back. The Zombie Gore is dry, and if you ask me, it's just like Vampire Thirst, just even darker. It's glossy and just as thin, and yeah. Next I'll try to add some Vampire Thirst to this, and I'm going to dry brush it on. So I'm adding a bit of fresh paint to my palette here. Just so. And then grab some of my dry brush here. Wipe most of it off on the tissue. And then just go crazy. Maybe I wiped off too much here. I'm not sure this is supposed to be dry brushed on. It doesn't seem to me it makes much of a difference. So you could leave the Zombie Gore for the most grievous wounds or the deepest recesses, and then add some Vampire Thirst around it. But yeah, this is what you get with the Zombie Gore. This next effect paint is much more suitable for our poor Necron here, and that is some Verdigris. I'll just apply this with my standard brush here. It's quite thin. It acts very much like a shade, as it should, in my opinion. So you're probably looking at about 20 minutes of drying time for this. But I'm a patient guy, I'll do that for you guys. And while we're at it, I'll add the Citadel variant on the other side of the model. There is a stark contrast in colors here, so it's really up to your personal preference. But this one is also very thin, acting like a shade. Has a much more greenish tint to it compared to the Too Thin Coats variant. Like so. I'll let it dry and be back. The paint is more or less dry, and as you can see, there is a huge difference between Too Thin Coats and Citadel. And as I said before, it's really up to your personal preference. I think I like the Citadel version more in this specific case. I think it looks a bit more, well, realistic, but it's up to you what you prefer, but I just wanted to show you the difference. So this is what you get with the Too Thin Coats Verdigris. Next up we have Iron Oxide, and this is to make some rust effects on your miniatures. Very suitable for a Necron. And as always, I've given this a good shake and adding some to my palette. Seems thin like the Verdigris. And then, once again, I'll apply this to half the model. Or thereabout. Yeah, it's very thin. Once more like a shade, I'll say. It runs straight into the recesses, just like we want. Now, the Citadel variant of this is quite different. I do remember when Citadel released their version of the effect paints, and what they recommended was that you added some Typhus Corrosion, which is a paint that has some texture in it, and once that's dry, you should give it a dry brush of Riser Rust. So I'll try just that, but when you're applying this one, don't use your finest or most expensive brush for this, because your brush will be ruined in the long run if you're using this a lot. So I'm grabbing this brush that I regretted buying, so why not? And then I'll apply this on the other half and let it dry. Some here as well. I don't know if the camera is picking it up, but there's some small grains or whatever you call it in this paint. So yeah, like I said, it adds some texture. I'll let it dry and be right back. The Iron Oxide is dry, and as you can see, it has stained the model and really colored the recesses beautifully. And the Typhus Corrosion is dry as well, so I'm going to add this Riser Rust to see what it looks like compared to the Too Thin Coats variant. I think I already know which one I prefer, but I'll leave my thoughts for after this. And here you have the final result. The Too Thin Coats variant is much more bright than using Typhus Corrosion and Riser Rust. And I also think they work in opposite ways, because the Too Thin Coats variant is a shade. It goes into the recesses and stains the models elsewhere. While this one, you are dry brushing it on, only hitting the raised areas, so it's a stark contrast. But I do believe that rust should gather in the recesses, so for this one I'm tipping my head towards Too Thin Coats. But again, it's up to your personal preference. And also, if you are using too thin coats, you're not ruining your brush in the meantime, which you might do while using typhus corrosion. The final effect paint I'm going to test is Desert Rust, which is, well, also rust, but it's just darker than Iron Oxide. Think of it like Vampire Thirst compared to Zombie Gore. It's the same idea, but the one is just much darker. And the same applies to this one. But I'm going to try it nonetheless. Yeah, very thin. And very red compared to the bright orange we tested before. But here we go. I do imagine that you're supposed to just apply this to the deepest recesses and then use Iron Oxide in the surrounding areas for the best effect. But I'm just going to apply this to show you how it looks, so you can see what you get if you purchase this paint. The color does remind me a little of blood, if I'm honest. Yeah, I'll apply this, let it dry, and I'll be right back. And here is the final result. It looks less like blood when it's dry, I think, and yeah, use it together with Iron Oxide and you can make some really cool effects. And you could also use the typhus corrosion solution while you add this to the recesses and the typhus corrosions to the more raised areas and dry brush with Riser Rust if you want. But the opportunities are endless, but once again, it's all up to personal preference. But this is what you get with Desert Rust. And that's all the effects paint tested for you. And as I mentioned in the beginning, I did not test the Spirit Medium, which is because it's essentially a Lahmian Medium, I suppose. I haven't tried it, but that's the purpose, is to thin your paints. So I hope you found this useful in making a decision on which brand of technical paint you would like to use. And yeah, thank you for watching and happy painting.